Hey guys, welcome back to Scanning the Mind. Today we are talking about the worst job in the hospital. You guys will recognise Seema from our rheumatology medical journeys, and you will also know if you watched the episode that she is my wife. You're a rheumatologist by day, but that isn't the worst job in the hospital.
I thought you were going to say you're a rheumatologist by day, but medical registrar by night. It made me sound like a superhero. You're a rheumatologist by a day, but medical registrar by night.
So that's your second role in the hospital, is when you're not doing your rheumatology day job.
Yeah.
You are a medical registrar. A lot of people watching may not know what a medical registrar is. Who or what is a medical registrar?
So a medical registrar is sort of the step below consultant for the acute medical take. You are the second most senior person in charge of the medical on-call. That means at night, because a consultant isn't with you at night, is that you're the most senior medical clinician on site at night. In terms of your responsibilities, you do things like you lead the cardiac arrest, you are responsible for the patients admitted to medicine from A&E, you deal with any questions from other specialities, the surgeons, and pretty much anyone. You get some queries from GPs as well. You're responsible for dealing with the sickest patients quite often when they're referred to medicine, and deciding what the best place for them might be in terms of care and what we should or perhaps shouldn't do for different patients as well.
Some people consider this to be one of the least desirable jobs within the hospital, at least within the sphere of being a doctor. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because you're being pulled in so many different directions. I think it's more volume as opposed to actually what you're doing. The medical registrar bleep, because you're not just getting calls about your speciality, you're getting calls when everyone else doesn't know what to do with someone, or whether someone needs certain investigations or not. And often you don't have time to see all those patients, so you're only going off what that person is saying, and then you feel responsible for all of these things that are just sort of happening in the ether somewhere in the hospital. You might have a few sick people at the same time where you're trying to work out who's the sickest and who needs your attention the most. So I think that's what's the most difficult part.
And like I said yourself earlier, if you're dealing with the sickest people in the hospital, if it's quite a big hospital, or even if it's not, there might be more than one critically unwell patient at the same time.
Yeah, often there is. You have a team though, so a lot of being a good medical registrar is about delegation, so knowing what your team is competent to deal with and what they're not. One of the other things about medicine in particular that you bear the brunt of if you're the medical reg on call is that when other specialities decide that it's not their responsibility, but they have to be admitted somewhere, inevitably they come to medicine. For example, I've had a patient who they've asked me to see with torrential vaginal bleeding. Now, most people out of you would know that that should go to gynecology. They were referred to me on the basis that the hemoglobin was low, and I had to say to the clinician in question, like, what do you want me to do with this person apart from transfuse someone? But they're constantly hosing out in a pathology that I can't fix. Medicine's inappropriate. You know, you get patients with fractures all the time. If the orthopedic surgeons don't need to do any surgery for them, they get admitted to medicine, which is understandable. They don't want to admit on themselves, but that's why you end up with your volume of patients. Bowel ischemia, obstructions. I've had countless cholecystitis, pancreatitis. We do have to know a decent amount of how to at least diagnose them, even if you not necessarily up to date on the treatment, and definitely not up to date on the surgeries.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you operating on me. No offense.
Maybe I could do it, you don't know.
So I'm guessing you learn quite a lot when you're on call, but a lot of people see it as service provision, not training. I
always say this to my juniors. Every single patient that you admit to hospital, there is something that you can learn from them, and it's about recognising what that learning point is. But if you're seeing so many patients, it's hard, isn't it? If it wasn't for the volume, you would have that time to sit, reflect, and think more carefully and take away learning points.
If you're trying to keep your head above water, you're not exactly going to be able to learn much.
And that's often what it feels like, is you're keeping your head above water. I will say that in places where there is a second registrar on call, or if there happens to be two registrars on call, your life is much better in the sense that at least you know that you will get a break. Knowing that there will be at least half an hour at some point in that night shift where you do not have to think about that bleep and answering a question, the decision fatigue that comes with that. So I've done a tally before of how many times on an on-call I've been asked a question, or people say, oh, can I just discuss this or run something by you? Nursing staff have asked me a question about someone. There's one busy on-call where it was 200 different queries that I dealt with. 212-hour shift of different patients that I need to think about is quite a lot.
Yeah, when you come home after a shift, I can tell from the way you look whether you've had one more registrar on call or not. If you've had one more registrar on call, you look reasonably happy. If you've not, you don't exactly look fresh. So you mentioned if you have 2 registrars, you will at least get your breaks. Do you get a break? It's a 12-hour shift, and that seems quite a long time to go without any break whatsoever.
Often I would be honest and say no, I don't get a break. Sometimes you are lucky and you do. A lot of it might depend on your personality as well. I find it really hard to take a break myself when I know that there's lots of people waiting for my care. But in reality, you should just take the break whenever you can.
But you don't.
I think I probably take less breaks.
This is something we've discussed, isn't it?
Than I should, yeah.
This is something I always tell you off about. I always say you need to take your breaks. Most things can always wait, but I don't think you kind of see it that way.
Often a lot of things can't wait. And even when you're on your break, you have the bleep still. So you're still interrupted on your break.
Anecdotally, I, and I'm sure a lot of people, know loads of people who wanted to do cardiology, respiratory, gastro, all these medical specialties, but decided not to because they didn't want to be a medical registrar on call.
I understand that it is a big thing to undertake in yourself. There are lots of shifts where I come home and I think, you know, is it worth it? Is it worth doing this? The way I thought about it was, I'm going to spend probably 30 years as a consultant, maybe more, depending on when we're allowed to retire. I really wanted to do rheumatology, and I felt that it would be a shame for me to deny myself of that career that I think I would be really good at and really enjoy for the sake of 3 years on the acute medical take. Now, I won't say it's been easy, and I won't say I've always had that rational, logical thought process as I'm doing the medical on call, but ultimately I've already done like, what, a year and a half of it, so there's not that much more to go. I mean, I try not to count how many shifts I've got left. I will be saying that after my last night shift, I'll probably open a bottle of champagne.
How close have you come to quitting and applying for radiology?
So rather being a healthy, supportive husband when I'm having a stressful day and I don't think I can cope with another medical register, rather than saying, you know, you've done it before, you can do it again. Varun goes with the tact of just quit and apply for radiology.
Yeah, it's such a better job.
I don't know, I think radiology is quite stressful too.
You mentioned all these things which aren't great about being a medical registrar on call. Is there anything that you like about it at all?
It is one of those things which I think makes me a better doctor overall. Learning to prioritise like that and the breadth of things that you see is really good for any clinician, and especially as a rheumatologist. It does make a difference when you're in clinic and you see perhaps, you know, those pathologies. The second thing I would say, for me personally, not for everyone, some people love it, some people find it really interesting. I suppose the change in adrenaline is quite nice sometimes. Like leading a cardiac arrest and getting someone back, I would say there's no feeling quite like that. You feel like a proper doctor. A lot of it though is a means to an end. You do your time, you get through your general medical years, and then eventually you'll do your last shifts in, you know, the general medical night shift, and you'll be a consultant, and it'll all be, everything's fine in retrospect.
Can you take us through a typical on-call shift as a medical registrar?
It depends on a weekend or a night, really.
Take us through a typical night shift in that case.
A typical night shift, you get there at 9 PM, you have handover where the other registrar hands over stuff to you. What I do is I look through the A&E board and I see what the state of A&E is, because that will directly impact on the state of my shift.
Okay.
And I try and preempt, if I can, the ones that are probably coming towards medicine and get a head start. So I just go ahead and start seeing patients and going through whatever's been handed over. I see the sick patients first and carry on.
And then in between all that, it's answering questions from nurses, junior staff, other specialties, fighting with the surgeons.
I don't bother fighting, but yeah, okay.
Are there any other jobs within the hospital, within being a doctor anyway, that you think deserve a nomination for being the worst job in the hospital?
Every job is hard in its own way. Personally, and this may not be a popular opinion, I actually found being a medical SHO, I found that almost, at times, worse than being a medical registrar, in that as a medical SHO, because your medical registrar is so busy, often you are dealing with very sick patients as well, but you're also dealing with things like a lot of the admin side of things as well, that I don't have to do discharge letters anymore, which is a big plus of being a medical reg. Taking bloods and cannulas, I've barely had to do any at all, really. Whereas as a medical SHO, you're not only having to see sick patients, but you're having to deal with all of those things as well.
Yeah, you didn't enjoy doing all the scope work, and there's a lot less scope work now.
Basically, yeah.
Fair enough. Anything else you want to say, Zima?
I would say, don't let me put you off. If there is a speciality you really want to do, it's worth, you know, it's worth being a medical reg. And I would say, you know, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Do you think there are people out there who enjoy being a medical registrar?
Yeah, there are some people who love it.
Each their own. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Seema for coming on. Thanks, Seema.
You're welcome.
Don't think she means it. If you like the video, hit the like button and comment down below. As always, subscribe to our channel as well for more videos. And apart from all of that, we will see you guys same place, same time next week. STM Sundays.